As my father, the judge, used to say, that hot start that the Sun Belt had in bowl season went hasta la bye-bye. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz, hosting Afternoon Sports Radio 105.5 WNSP in Mobile. And prior to that, covering the South Alabama Jaguars. And prior to that, covering the Louisiana Raging Cajuns and doing mornings on 103.7 The Game in Lafayette. So the Sun Belt got off to a great start in their bowl games. They went to 7 different bowl games. They won their first 3. But, boy, they went out. I mean, what's this saying? They went out like a lion and started out like a lamb or something like that. No, that's not it. But, I mean, it was bad. I mean, they started out really well, and the last few games were not great, Bob. South Alabama didn't do well. The Cajuns had their game won, lost it. I will say Georgia Southern put up a little bit of a battle. That was a good ball game. But let's talk about the last game first. And Coastal Carolina, once Grayson McCall got hurt, they were taking on East Carolina. And once Grayson McCall got hurt in the first half, it was kind of all she wrote. East Carolina takes down Coastal Carolina. My goodness. 53-29. East Carolina did not score less than 10 points in any of the quarters. And once you went to Jared Guest, it was not going to be great for Coastal Carolina. Grayson McCall, 10 of 12, 67 yards. I think he got hurt rushing for a touchdown, and that was basically it. That was the end of Coastal Carolina. They tried to get something going in the second half. They could have gotten a quick interception. They had some interesting penalties called against them, but really they were kind of outclassed. Bryce, they went to Jared Guest, who was 6 of 11 for 136 yards and a touchdown. They went to Bryce Archie, who was just 1 of 2, but he ran it for a little bit, I guess all of 6 yards. But the defense also could not contain Holton Ahlers, the quarterback for East Carolina. 26 of 38, 300 yards. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 touchdown passes. Also, for good measure, ran one in. He actually ran for 48 yards on just 7 carries. It was 24, actually kind of close at halftime. And Coastal Carolina, I believe, actually had a 14-10 lead. Yeah, they took a 14-10 lead. And that was the Grayson McCall touchdown run, and he was it. That was it. He got hurt on that play. East Carolina comes back to put 2 scores on the board in the second quarter. Went up 24-14. And, went away at that point in time. Just pulled away. Not a great way for Coastal Carolina to finish up the season. Is that losses of 3 of 4? And again, that's a lot without Grayson McCall. Yeah, in fact, 3 in a row. They escaped against Southern Miss, didn't play against Virginia. I got blown out against James Madison, got blown out against Troy, and got blown out against East Carolina. If I was Coastal Carolina, I'd be really concerned what the direction of this program is. It seems like it was a whole lot of Grayson McCall and a whole lot of Jamie Chadwell. We're not exactly going to know that next year with Tim Beck in and a new quarterback in, but a lot of the talent that Coastal Carolina had for the last few years is gone. This year especially, it was on defense. And this program is not that much older than South Alabama's. I think they've been playing a little bit longer total, but going up to the FBS, not so great. And, they've struggled as well. They kind of hit lightning in a bottle with Grayson McCall. As recently as 2019, they had a losing season, 5-7. In 18, 5-7. In 17, 3-9. This was not a great program. There's not a whole lot of history. Although when they were at a lower level, I guess it was 10-2 in 2016. They went 9-3, so pretty good at the lower level. My mistakes. 12-2, but they 12-2 in 2014. So there is a little bit of winning, a lot of winning actually. 2013, 12-3. My mistake. So they were pretty good, but they struggled. Unlike James Madison, I should say, they struggled to make that leap up to to FBS level. They went 3-9 in 2017, 2018 5-7, 2019 5-7, and then boom sauce in 2020. They went 11-0 in the regular season, losing in overtime to Hugh Freeze and Liberty. 2021, they went 10-2. And in fact, they went 11-2, beating Northern Illinois in the Cure Bowl. And this year they won 9 ball games. So they have made that leap, but a lot of that is connected to Grayson McCall, the 3-time Sun Belt Player of the Year. So we'll see if they can reload with the defense, if they can find a new quarterback. I'm not sure if that quarterback is on the team. We'll see if Grayson McCall comes back, because he was headed to Auburn, and that didn't work out. He was headed to Florida. I'm not sure that's worked out. So we'll see where Coastal Carolina goes, because, right now, and, James Madison needs a quarterback. Todd Centeio is gone. App State Chase Bryce is gone. And so a lot of quarterbacks are going to be needed in the Sun Belt's Eastern Division. Marshall's got a young quarterback. Georgia Southern's going to need a new quarterback. So there's a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be needed in the Sun Belt's Eastern Division. But just the way that this season ended, I know a lot was on Grayson McCall, but the defense didn't play very well. And, they even got blown out by ODU early on in the season, but it certainly did not finish up the way you wanted to. Compare that to the South Alabama season, which, finished up strong outside of the bowl game. They got blown out in the bowl game. Admittedly, did write about that today on WNSP.com. You want to see that? One very bad game just should not ruin the entire season, as it was spectacular for South Alabama. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Coastal Carolina, moving forward, because they may be depleted of talent. Of course, with the portal, you can replace some of that talent very, very quickly. All right, we will come back and talk about the other ball game that was much closer today. Kyle Van Treese playing, and Georgia Southern playing Kyle Van Treese's former team, the Buffalo Bulls in the Montgomery Bowl, whereas Coastal Carolina lost to East Carolina in the Birmingham Bowl. But first, BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Dave Schultz back with more Locked On Sunbelt. Coastal Carolina loses 3 in a row to finish up the season 9-4. They lose the Birmingham Bowl to East Carolina, 53-29. Meanwhile, Georgia Southern was going at it with the Buffalo Bulls, and this is actually one of the better bowl games that we've seen. I'm not sure how much it went back and forth. Let's see. Georgia Southern took a 3-0 lead, Buffalo 7-3, then 7-6, then 14-6. Georgia Southern tied it up at 14. Buffalo made it 17-14, then 20-14, and then 23-14. Georgia Southern does take a 13-play, 90-yard drive. It took 5 minutes. The problem with that is it started with 8:38 to go in the fourth quarter. They got it to 23-21, down by 2, and Buffalo made a couple of huge plays. The big one, the real big one, was Cole Snyder's a 9-yard pass to Justin Marshall towards the Buffalo Bulls sidelines. It was a 9-yard pass on 3rd and 7, and that basically gave Buffalo the ball. They had one more third down they had to convert with just over a minute to go. And Tajay Ahmed ran for 4 yards and converted a 3rd and 3, and they ran out the clock. So this ball game was evenly matched. Two teams coming in at 6-6. Buffalo had to beat Akron in the beginning of December just to get in, and they defeat the Georgia Southern Eagles 23-21. So Buffalo finishes 7-6. Georgia Southern 6-7. Van Treese, let's see, 28 of 45, 352 yards, a couple of touchdowns, and an interception. Cole Snyder, the quarterback that replaced Van Treese with Buffalo, 21 of 38, 265 yards, and a touchdown. The tone for this ball game was set early on as Georgia Southern was stopped twice inside the 10-yard line. These two field goals that Georgia Southern got in the second quarter, short field goals. Alex Rayner, 23-yard field goal, kicking from the 13. That made it 3-0. Buffalo scores a touchdown, makes it 7-3. Then another 71-yard drive, and Alex Rayner, a 21-yard field goal, kicking from the 11. So they were, on the second field goal, they were sitting on the 4, and on the first field goal, they were on the 6. So Georgia Southern had chances to, I don't want to say take control, but I mean, certainly to match Buffalo's 14 points in the second quarter, and Buffalo is scoring touchdowns while Georgia Southern is kicking field goals. So Georgia Southern certainly had their opportunities in this game. They did get back into it. First play of the second half, Buffalo fumbles. One play later, a touchdown, 79 yards from Van Treese to McAfee, actually to Joshua Thompson, and it was Van Treese to McAfee for the 2-point conversion that tied the game up at 14. But that was as close as they would get until the end when it was 23-21. So again, we'll see where Georgia Southern goes for their quarterback. I mean, I think that Van Treese did he throw every single pass this year? I mean, almost. I don't know how to say. Connor Sigleski threw 3 passes this year, if he's the backup quarterback. O.J. Arnold, the running back, had 2 passes for 32 yards and a touchdown, and Dalen Cobb threw a 1 pass. So out of the 565 passes, Kyle Van Treese threw 559. So we'll see if Connor Sigleski, or Sigelski, maybe, Cigelske, is the quarterback next year. He does finish with 30,901 yards. Kyle Van Treese certainly, came in with a splash, beating Nebraska. Even the loss to UAB. Okay, that's at UAB. I don't have a problem with that. They even lost to Coastal, lost to Georgia State, had a big win against James Madison, got a win and move on against Old Dominion, but they faltered when they lost to South Alabama and could not recover, losing to the Cajuns and losing to Marshall before the epic 51-48 win over App State. And probably that's what everyone is going to remember. They're going to be disappointed in the Buffalo loss. They had a chance to win that ball game. They will remember the Nebraska game, and they will absolutely remember the 51-48 2 overtimes against Georgia Southern against App State in Statesboro is what I meant to say. So that he'll be a legend forever. Won't have to ever buy a drink or a meal in Statesboro again. When you just mentioned 51-48, that's kind of going to be like, what 28-3 means. I say to Patriots fans, but it seems to mean just as much to Saints fans as they like to mock Falcons fans. So 51-48 will go down in the annals between Georgia Southern and App State, as 28-3 means in the NFL. All right. I do want to ask you to take this time. If you would, please subscribe. We've been doing this now for a few months. We just started I think a few weeks ago doing videos. It would help out if you would subscribe on the YouTube channel. Just search out Locked On Sunbelt. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you have found it, so we could use the help with the subscribe. And if you would rate and review on, wherever you find your podcasts. Obviously, it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you do get the podcast. You can find Locked On Sunbelt. That would be a big help to me and the channel. And here's what it comes down to. The more people watch, the more people listen, the more views it gets, the better guests that I can get. For example, coaches. The coaches will come on. I've had a few coaches come on. They've been very kind, from Kurt Signetti to Charles Huff to John Summerall. But some of these guys, if I don't know them, I think I had Clay Helton on the show after they beat Nebraska. But if I don't know them or they don't know me, we had Will Hall on. He was kind enough to come on because he knows me. But the more viewers this has and the more legitimacy by the viewership and the listens and the subscribers, the better guests we can have, because that's how they're going to decide what podcasts to go on, because everyone's got one these days. Everyone's got a podcast these days, and these coaches are pulled in umpteen different directions. They get a little low-key vacation this week before they get back to recruiting, slightly after the new year, after the national championship game. So they get a little downtime, and so, I'm one among many asking for their time. So the more views they see and the more subscribers they see, the more legitimacy it has, and the better chance we have to get guests. So please subscribe, and both on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you see it on Facebook, like and share it. That would be a big help. Thank you so much. All right, quickly again, we got basketball coming up, right? We have basketball coming up in the Sun Belt. I'm so excited about this, because finally we're getting there. And I don't know, I'm going to be straight about this. I don't know the kind of team, being here in Mobile, I don't know the kind of team that South Alabama has. I really don't. Last year, I thought with the guys they had some Power 5 guys. And if they stayed healthy, they were going to be pretty good. They did not stay healthy towards the end, and so they faltered. But I don't know what they got this year. All right, we're going to quickly find out. They are 6-6. Georgia Southern is 7-6. And then they play Georgia State on Saturday. So Georgia Southern up first on Thursday, Georgia State on Saturday. Certainly they are used to the road. Out of the 12 ball games that they've played, 8 have been on the road. They've played a total of 4 home games on the road. They came home for Spring Hill, Mobile rival, if you will, and then Jacksonville State last Wednesday. And then now they go back on the road again to play the Georgia teams, although they will be at home, excuse me, for 4 games after that. So they'll get to spend a few weeks at home in the Sun Belt. So I don't understand. I'm not sure what we have in South Alabama. It does appear teams like the Cajuns, Southern Miss, and Marshall are pretty good. We'll see how good they are. Cajuns and South Alabama play a couple times this year, I believe. So certainly they do come here early in the season. Is it both ways? At South Alabama? No, it's just here. Oh, no. They finish up. South Alabama finishes up with the Cajuns on February 24th. Maybe that's a little road trip to it's a Friday. Maybe we can do the show in maybe we can do the show in Lafayette somewhere. Maybe I can find a place to do the show. Anyways, looking forward to basketball season. We'll get more into that as the season unfolds. Again, you do seem to have the top teams that are starting out. What do we say? The Cajuns, Marshall, and Southern Miss seem to be in prime spots, whereas everybody else seems to be like, sort of good. We don't really know yet, right? James Madison 9-4, Old Dominion 8-4. Red Wolves and the Trojans 8-5, and then it kind of goes from there. Maybe UL Monroe is struggling 4-9 thus far have not won a game on the road. So we shall see what it is coming up for Sunbelt basketball. And we'll start to preview some of that on tomorrow's episode as they're getting underway on Thursday. So, all right. I want to thank you very much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. Again, this bowl season started out great with those 3 big wins, right? Marshall beating Notre Dame, App State beating A&M, and Georgia Southern beating Nebraska. And then the bowl games, Troy with a win, Southern Miss with a win, and one more win in there as well. And then they just lost the last 4 ball games, and 3 of them were not pretty at all. Now it's going to bother me that I can't remember. It was Southern Miss. Oh, Marshall. And Marshall beat UConn. So those 3 ball games were pretty good, but then Western Kentucky blew out South Alabama, as we stated. Louisiana gave it away to Houston. Buffalo and Georgia Southern was a good battle, but Coastal Carolina got embarrassed by East Carolina. Grayson McCall going down, and that was kind of all she wrote. And when you see that happen, you kind of wonder what's going to happen next year, as there's going to be a changing of the guard in Conway, South Carolina. All right, once again, I am your host, Dave Schultz. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.